Luck favors the prepared, and being prepared for every battle game that you might come across ahead of time is going to help you do better in battle games and maybe even become a battle master. How can we evaluate battle games in seconds and already know what we need to do to be on the victory? I'm Squire Callahan Ridgeborn, almost a battle master, definitely a wizard, and today I'm here to talk to you about the three types of battle games that exist in Amtgard. There are resource battle games, territory battle games, and shatter battle games. And what do I mean by each of those? So a resource battle game is built around possession of a physical object. Okay? Now that could mean a lot of different things. There's a bunch of ways you can put a spin on this. But victory always is going to come through ownership of a physical object. This is going to be a capture the flag type game where you go and retrieve something, bring it back to your base. Maybe this is a resource game where you have to gather a bunch of tennis balls. Doesn't matter. This is a item-centric game where you have a number of physical resources that you have to go and collect, right? The next type of game is a territory battle game. This is a battle game built around a location. Big examples for this is going to be planting a bomb, right? Now you might think, Callahan, planting a bomb, that sounds like a resource game, but it's not a resource game because you don't care about the actual physical item, you care about the location the item is in and holding that for a set amount of time. King of the Hill is the same thing. You want to be the last person standing on that hill, and node capture as well. When you capture nodes, you're just taking territory and making it yours. So those are territory-based games. Shatter battles are all about people breaking the other team, making them run out of lives, and you destroy them enough times that they cannot return. Shatter battles are an entire type of game. You can play a shatter battle. There's 3-Man Forever. 3-Man Forever is a people-centric game where your goal is to break all the other teams. Life pool scenarios. Any game where there's a number of lives that you have that you cannot go over is a shatter battle. And most quests, or like night quests, those are also going to be shatter battles because your limiting resource in that is really just how many lives or respawns you get. Next, there are a number of types of battlefields, right? So we have the three kinds of games, and there's three kinds of fields. There are open fields, cramped fields, and mixed fields. So what does that look like? Well, an open field is just a large, empty playing space. If you're here in the Rising Winds and you've played at the Billy Creek site, you know what I'm talking about because that is an open field. There's not a lot going on in there. There's no trees or natural terrain. So battles in those fields tend to get a lot more spread out. There's going to be a lot more flanking going on. There's going to be less solid lines getting formed. If you're in an open battle game, something to focus on for your victory is going to be high mobility. You want to be able to move around quickly and easily, and you're also going to want to make sure that you're not getting flanked out. Alternatively, you might have a cramped battlefield. So a cramped battlefield, this looks something more like Bridge Wars, where you have a very defined amount of play space that you're allowed to be in, and so lines do get formed. On the defensive end, you're going to want to be very stalwart in your defense, not being able to get moved, and your goal is obviously to move the other team there. These games have very little flanking because it's very difficult to flank in the physically limited space, right? A mixed game, alternatively, is a large open field that has terrain effects that create artificial or natural choke points. So any type of game where the game runner is putting out, flagging tape, or there's designated areas, a lake or a river or something like that, where there is an incentive for players to go to the cramped fighting spot, but they don't have to. So in a mixed field, you kind of get the best of both worlds because you'll get line fighting going on in the cramped area. There's still flanking going on through the suboptimal terrain, that area where you don't really want to get in a fight. Maybe there's a river across the middle of the battlefield, and if you get wounded in the river, you drown. So you've got to be careful when you're flanking, but you can still flank around. There could be multiple lanes going on, so that would be a mixed type field. So if you take those three types of fields and those three types of games, you can start to break down what everything looks like, right? So when I go to evaluate a battle game, I have a couple of steps that I go through. So first, I determine the win condition. Then I determine the size and type of game, and then I'm going to talk about my tactics. So I have some real-world examples here, and we're going to run through these. So I have for us a lovely thing here. So June event of last year was pretty cool. During that June event, there was a all-day battle game that was going on. It was multiple days. It was all day long, and it was a super cool event. And for each game, if you look over here, you can kind of see some things that I'm immediately going to notice. So the first thing I want to do is figure out the win condition, okay? So the win conditions, if you read through this whole thing, right here at the top, it says that there's 1,000 team lives. So if you manage to kill 1,000 of the other team's players and force them to respawn, we can win the game. Okay? Now that, even though it's an all-day long battle game, it's a pretty lofty goal to set, right? Well, if we read through this document, there are a bunch of ways you actually can score points. And so if we look at... Where did it go? So node capture. So... to capture a node, you had to have a hand 60 seconds be there, but you at random points during the game, these nodes were scored, and every node you controlled gave you a point towards the overall game. So really, there were two ways to win: either sack out your opponents by killing them 1,000 times, or scoring more points than them. So realistically, we're not going to be able to blow through 1,000 lives, so we needed to get points. So what were some of the things we could do to get points, right? We could build forts. So forts could be put anywhere on the battlefield. We could create a fort, and then you could move lives to the fort, because they actually had a physical bucket full of rocks, and each rock represented a respawn point. Well, if you established a fort, that was worth points, and then every time a lieutenant moved 10 lives from the main base to a fort where someone could respawn, that was worth points. And so it became this funny thing that we were able to do. During this battle game, we did some point farming because we set up a fort the minimum distance away from our base, the Army headquarters. And so it was minimum distance away, and running a convoy required 3 people. So I grabbed 2 other people, and we walked back and forth, I want to say 40 times back and forth, just to score those points over and over and over and over and over again. And we basically stopped because we got bored with it. But that racked us up a ton of points for the Glorious Sun Army. And that was a way that we were able to get points. We also could fight the monsters. If you defeated monsters, you got extra lives for your life pool, and you got a couple of points. Each of the field battles gave you points for the overall thing, but ultimately those were the big things, was finding the 1,000 lives, and then defining how many points each one was worth. So if we pop back over and we look, so I identified our win condition, right? Because our win condition here is getting the most points. And then the size and type of the game. So this game was very open, and it was territory control was the big thing. So having those nodes and scoring them on points was good, and then being able to do anything else to score points was great as well. But it was primarily territory control with a shatter sub-theme. And so knowing that and knowing the type of field, I was able to build those tactics, find some of those weird little repeatable loopholes to try to get a bunch of points ahead of time and really boost our team's score. The next game I want to talk to you about was Bridge Wars. So Bridge Wars 2024 was pretty cool. There were actually 3 different games, but the one I want to talk to you about, this one, the Heavy Object Reverse Tug of War. So the Reverse Tug of War didn't end up actually being a game that was run at Bridge Wars 2024. They changed it up a little bit at the last minute, so this isn't exactly what it was, but this was what we prepped off of, and it was pretty cool. So the objective was to push an objective, a heavy item, onto your opponent's side and hold it there. So if we come down here, if we look at these were the map that was provided. This is all actual documentation from the game runners. So if we look at this, There was a sled that was going to be in the middle and a little sled here with a strong side and a weak side. And so all you had to do to win, because it was a 10-minute long game, was push the sled over and have both, if you had both sleds, each sled had somebody with 2 stopwatches. And if the sled was on, the enemy side, you were getting points. And if it was on your side, they were getting points. And whoever had the most collective time at the end was going to be the winner. So immediately, we've got our win con. And we also know our field type is. It's extremely cramped. With a little bit of flanking option off of these sides. And so the plan that I had was really overwhelming this side here, like sending 2 people, because these were 12-man teams, and I use the term man like neutrally here. So 12-man team, and my initial thought was send 10 of them on this sled to just shove it up here as far as possible, and then peel off several of those fighters to come over here and then reinforce this. Because if we could shove this sled, because we didn't know how much it was going to weigh. It was purported to weigh a bunch. If we pushed it all the way up to the top here, it would be difficult for them to move it, because initial momentum is really important in this type of game. Whoever moves that sled first is going to have a huge advantage on defending it. So if we could shove it all the way up there and then shove this one just across and then hold that, basically forming a little box right here where the enemy could actually function, that was going to be how we were going to shut that game down. Ultimately, Bridge Wars was pretty cool. My team did not place in Bridge Wars this year, but I'm really hopeful for next year. And so the last one I wanted to talk to you about today, there's a Battle Master tournament at Keep in 2024. This is actually the Battle Master tournament that I was able to lead my team to victory in. So for this tournament, there was some cool stuff that was going on. There was going to be so the rules were published ahead of time. They were asking for pre-registrations for teams, and they were 4-person squads for each group that was coming in. So you build a squad, and then your squad would join the fight. And so every game that was here lasted 10 minutes long, and they would put people on. They'd take squads and put squads on each side. And the first game, it was pretty just randomly put over there. But each game thereafter, they would take half the people from the winning team and split them 50-50, and half the team from the losing team split them 50-50 and put them up there so that you had some balance going on. Well, they had 3 games that were going to be run, and it was a really great tournament. I had a great time in it. But the thing that I had to figure out for this tournament format was not how to win each individual game. I wanted to figure out how to win the tournament. Right, so identifying that win condition. So the biggest thing is winning a game got you 1 victory point for your squad. If you were on the winning side of a game, you got a victory point. So everybody, half of everyone was going to get a victory point. Then you had the most valuable squad. The most valuable squad was picked by the Reeves. Whoever did the most coolest thing, they would get 2 victory points. And then if you had the MVP, that was a single player who did the best during that game. They got 1 victory point. So these 3 victory points were very subjective. They were based on what the judges thought, right? But then this right here, the squad with the fewest deaths got a victory point. So my team, we had a paladin, a healer, a wizard, and a druid. And so what we did for it was I told the healer, at the cost of everything else, we will have the fewest deaths. Because if you respawned, it didn't count as a death. They had somebody at the back of the field where the respawn point was, keeping track of who respawned. And so it didn't matter anything else on this game, as long as our squad had the fewest deaths and we were on the winning team, we could get 2 points per game for 6 points. Now, this is a bit of a meta call here, but most judges won't pick a most valuable squad to be the same squad every time, right? Now, I knew if we could get most valuable squad once, that was going to be really good for us. If we could get the MVP once or twice, that'd be really great because we had some really good players on our team. But the thing we could control was winning a game and having the fewest deaths. So knowing that those 2 things were the goal, we wanted to win and we wanted to not respawn. So that really influenced what we did. So game 1 was a control game where there were 3 nodes, and it was a 10-minute long game again, right? So this is just territory control. With that territory control, we had to get people up to a node. There were 3 of them straight across the middle of a big open field, right? All of these were very open games. There was no terrain, so you had to be on your eyes for flanking and stuff like that, because remember our 3 field types: open, closed, and mixed. Very open. This is the territory game. So what we did was we looked at the 1, 2, 3 nodes that were across the field, and thankfully it was not heavily contested with people that were actively trying to like champion for their team. So all 3 games I organized my team and was able to get them doing what I wanted them to do with very little resistance, which was really, really nice. Sometimes you go into a battle game and you say, hey, I want to organize people, and you get a bunch of people that are like, no, we don't want to be organized. Well, these people did want to be organized, and so we were able to do quite a bit. And so what I did was I said, okay, I know what my team can do, and my squad could take probably any 2 squads over there. But what we did was I said, all right, that far right objective over there, that's theirs. We do not care about it at all, because if they hold that the entire game and we hold these other 2, we've won. So I told everybody at the beginning, we're going to go for the 1, 2 nodes in the middle, and then we're going to harass them and make the fight be over that 3rd node and let them forget about these first 2 nodes. So what we did was I took half of our people and put half of them on the center node, and then I took a fourth of our people and put them on the far right, and a fourth of our people over on the far left. The other team went for a third split. So what we ended up having was a really powerful group in the middle that shut them down really fast. And the other thing that happened was the team across, well, when I told everybody, as soon as that whistle is blown, everyone is sprinting to these objectives. Don't stop to enchant. Don't stop to prep a spell ball. Get on the point as fast as humanly possible, and then do that stuff. Because what ended up happening is the entire other team for that game stood back and charged their stuff and got ready, and then came up. But we got up there first, got into position, and then charged our stuff up. So we changed the timing of it. So normally people charge up their spell ball and then go forward. But if you go forward and then charge up your spell ball, it still takes the same amount of time to charge the spell ball for both sides, because it's the same incants, right? But what you've done now is you've changed where you're positioned. So instead of being all the way back at the beginning and then getting all the way up to the front when you're ready, you're at the front and then you're ready. And this gave us a big opening advantage for being where we already wanted to be. We weren't running up to it. And then we held those nodes, and when you, in a time limit game like this where you get points based on how long you hold the nodes, I knew that as long as we held those 2 nodes, we were going to win. It was inevitable, right? And so what I did was I parked our healer about 25 feet back, and I told him, make sure that no matter what, no one on our team gets respawn. And so we had a couple of really good healers, and so we just kept pushing those 2. We held those 2 nodes really strong against all comers. And if anybody rolled up to the node, I shoved them. We had people with swords, and they'd sword fight them. We just kept them off us the whole time, and we kept that 3rd node the hotly contested area where everybody wanted to be, and so we had very small groups maintaining the 2 primary nodes we were holding, and so we won that game, and we were in a multi-way tie for squad with the fewest deaths because their team also had healers. But we got 2 points. So in the next game, this is a capture game. In this game, we had people, again, they didn't really change the setup. There were 3 nodes in the middle. You could capture the 2 nodes on the side, and they would put balls into the middle of the court, and you had to capture a ball and then take it over to one of the 2 sides, the node that your team had captured, and then you could turn it in, and that would get you points. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Because, again, it was very open field. We already had established it was an open field. So what I did was I told the healers, your job is to make sure that nobody ever respawns. They're only resurrected. And I took a whole bunch of people that were playing casters, okay? And I said, listen, casting's cool and all, but winning is better. So what I want you to do, and I did this myself, is spend the entire game running points back and forth as hard as possible. Run up, cast a spell, run a point back. And if there's an objective on the ground, you don't stop to cast, you just move. And so we ended up having such an overwhelming number of points. I don't know what the actual score was, but the other team, I don't think, managed to hold one of the nodes for more than like a minute or two. And we ran the objectives back and forth because I took all of my armor people. I took all the armor and I said, all right, guys, your job is to get 5 feet in front of where the resource respawns and stand there forever. And so we were able to do that. We ran up all of our armor. We enchanted them on sight. And then we held that at that like 60% point, just a little bit ahead of that node. We didn't get over engaged. We didn't get drawn out. We held that node the entire time and just sprinted those balls back and forth between the resource spawn point and the node, to the point where the Reeve that was counting was picking up balls as fast as he could, running them to the middle and running back, and he couldn't keep up with us. We kept the spawn area completely devoid of resources the entire time. And so we really devastated that game. And again, our healers did an amazing job in the back line, and we had very few respawns. So my team got another 2 points. In the third game, this was a push game, where you have a heavy object that is going to be moving along a lane. So we had a heavy object on the left side. They had a heavy object on our right, their left. And the goal was, once you pushed it past the median point, every minute it would score points. And so I said, okay, well, the big thing there was a team could not move an objective once it had been moved, right? So my team couldn't touch their objective and their team couldn't touch my objective. So once we shoved it forward, that's cool. We don't need to do it anymore. So what we did was, I told my team, I said, guys, listen, we need to shove this objective as far forward as possible and then abandon it. It doesn't matter. As long as our objective is further forward than their objective, we're getting more points, because there was like 3 spots where you could get 1, 2, or 3 points. So I want to get us to the 2 or 3 point mark as fast as humanly possible and then ditch it, because you didn't have to stand there and guard the objective. You just had to push it forward. And so there's this little thing that was going to happen where, once again, the third node in the center mattered. So the third node in the center was the tie-breaking node. And every minute, both of the push objectives scored and the center node scored. And I knew if we held the center node and we had our objective forward of that line, at least equivalent to theirs, we could not lose. So I took the majority of my people and I put them on the center. I took half my people and put them on the center. And I took a fourth and a fourth, and I split them up. And I told the guys over here, you don't really have to do all that much. Just harass whoever's pushing that and just make them a little bit slower than us, because again, the battle game, the win condition here is scoring on the minute marks. So as long as we get a little bit of a lead on them, then it'll start cascading. And we never once lost that center node. And my team got another 2 points, and we ended up picking up a most valuable player and a most valuable squad. So we won the tournament with 9 points, and the next closest was 6 points. And so that was a pretty big win for the Saracens. We were very proud of that victory. So we've run through my real-world examples of how I evaluate some battle games and some stories about those. Don't forget, there are 3 types of battle games. There are resource games, territory games, shatter games, and there are 3 types of battlefields. There are open fields, there are closed fields, and there are mixed fields. And if you can figure out what your win condition is, what your game type and what your field type are, that'll help you build your tactics better. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.